Even my mind seems stimulated by it, and that delight has never gone away. Indeed, I find at the age of 76 that food tastes better than ever. In fact, I eat nothing else. There are, in fact, only 3 comestibles that I do not allow to pass my lips: celery, sea urchin, and raw human flesh. Strangely enough, my memory of the meal eclipses that of my first few weeks at Clifton, but I think that's because my life as a new boy was very ordinary. Now that I was growing up, I turned 14 during my first month at Clifton. Nothing seemed as impressive or daunting as it had been at my early days at St Peters Prep School. The masters were people, not titans, and had no power of life or death over me. There was also something very undramatic about my new school life. It was calm and businesslike and brisk, almost matter-of-fact, because Clifton was thoroughly middle of the road in all things. It was a kind school in which there was no bullying, a well-mannered, unexceptional, and decent place, and so strangely unmemorable. It was, however, big. There were about 700 boys, the vast majority of whom were boarders, split up into 8 houses where they slept and spent their spare time. The day boys were divided between 2 further houses, Northtown and Southtown, depending on what part of Bristol they inhabited. My house was Northtown, dominated by a large central room lined with fair-sized lockers, and with a huge table in the middle surrounded by chairs. Each of us was allocated one of the lockers, which was expected to contain all our possessions and school books. Just off the big room, there were 2 studies, one for the house prefects and the other for the house master. Upstairs were a library and an area where we could play chess or study. And right opposite Northtown House, literally across the street, was the entrance to Bristol Zoo, from which throughout the day emanated sounds of gibbons and lions and elephants and wild dogs and parrots and American tourists. I liked these noises. They were reminders of an exciting world beyond. The great advantage of being in a house populated by day boys was that the people I came to like were always around. They did not disappear to various parts of the country for half-term and holidays. As a result, and also because I'd become less wussy and a little more fun to be with, I started to acquire plenty of friends whose houses I would visit. Among this group were a couple of boys I was particularly close to, whose curious, playful, and slightly mischievous matiness brought out a correspondingly larky part of me that had been dormant these past 14 years. Adrian Upton is now Professor of Medicine, Neurology, at McMaster University in Canada, with a list of degrees as long as your leg. Michael Apter is a psychologist who originated reversal theory. He has held visiting professorships all over the planet and now works with Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. They were brighter than me, but the 3 of us would use the big room to carry out prank experiments that we found both entertaining and revealing. One involved leaving a folded note on the huge table with the name of someone in the house written on the outside, for example, for Foster. The 3 of us would then lurk and observe just how compelled other boys felt to discover its contents. Almost without fail, they would hang around, glance to see if they were being observed, and then stealthily pick up the note and quickly look inside to find a message like, "Is your name Foster?" or "You are being watched," at which point they would drop it and try to work out if anyone had seen them. Another prank was to swap the contents of 2 lockers. As each boy's entire life was in his locker, this gave us the opportunity to observe how people behaved when they were really panicked. It struck me that laughter was at the very heart of these closest relationships. The bonhomie and fun bonded us together and allowed me to grow in confidence as I experienced acceptance and support and camaraderie. Of course, as young males, we never talked about our feelings, but we discussed the insanity of the world, and at long last my personality was developing free of the influence of Dad and Mum, and indeed of any other grown-ups, including the teachers. In retrospect, I can see I was on the way to becoming almost normal.